I've heard your name a million times growing up.
How do I spell
really
it?
don't know. Yeah, how do you spell it? That's the biggest problem I'm
Well,
having.
you know what? Actually, my name is Robert Daniel Bailey.
Okay.
And, some friends at CKCO TV where I worked, they just came back from Billy Bob's in Texas, and everybody was Bob, right? And so they started calling me Dan Bob, right? And there were people, because my name is Dan Bailey, that what I was going by.
Yeah.
They actually thought my last name was Bob because I'd signed my scripts D or Dan B.
Oh, okay.
That's
Right?
hilarious.
So, yeah, but actually it's Robert Daniel. But my parents, chose to use my middle name. Anyway, that's a short story. So you're going to ask me, and I
Oh no, I was
interrupt your
no God,
question.
oh my God. I was just gonna say I'm here to learn a ton of stuff about you. So you guys may talk away, but I'm learning. I'm
Right.
learning some things. So
My brother's name
That's
is
all I was
Robert
gonna say.
Timothy.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, they call him Tim. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's ever called him Robert.
Well, my grandfather was Robert Cecil. My father was Robert Carl. I'm Robert Daniel, and my oldest son is Robert Scott. But we've all gone with our second names. So
your
Where
son
does-
goes by Scott as well.
Where does
Yeah.
the Robert come from?
I don't know.
Okay.
No one ever told me.
That's hilarious. Okay, well,
Robert Frost.
Danny, if you see
poetic.
me, you may see me taking
Yeah.
pictures of you,
Yeah,
things
no-
like that.
no worries.
And if I'm texting away,
Yeah.
that's my girlfriend. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding. No, that's me talking to Deanna behind the wall there. So
Oh wow, that's what communication. It just blows me away. And you know what? I'm envious of you. I mean, to have the availability for all the technical stuff that we had in our day, but it cost thousands of dollars. It weighed a ton. It was just like,
I hate it, man. Everybody at any time can get a hold of me any way possible.
yeah.
And
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
I'm talking more about the creative, like making movies and TV
Okay.
and
I agree with that.
and it's just
Sure.
like, what you have available, what you can buy at the corner store and bring it all together.
100%.
I mean, first of all, when I started in television, the state.
this is all going on the podcast. I haven't even introduced this.
no,
bugger yet.
I realize that. It's all good. Yeah, but either way.
No,
But anyway, we were using NTSC 525 lines, which is like over half or the degraded resolution of 1080, right?
Okay.
I mean, you could sit at the TV screen and you'd see the red, blue, and green dots, and you could see black all the way around it, which was no information, right? So, I mean, I started my career shooting video when it was just becoming portable.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that I actually didn't have the availability of shooting 1080, because I look at my stuff, even stuff that I shot of you back then, and you look at the quality now and you just go like, holy fuck.
yeah.
It's like
crazy.
But now, even when I'm looking at 4K, I'm just like, and I've seen beyond that as well, and it's just like, whoa. I mean, I thought by now we'd have holograms, but I mean, we're right around the corner of
that's like literally around the corner.
yeah, it's like Fahrenheit 451.
Can you imagine watching an action movie and it actually is running through your living room?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've worn virtual goggles and went through a rice paddy field down at the Google place, Communitech. And that, first time you ever wear goggles like that in 3D and, just get that sense of an environment that's digital but totally different, man. It's like, yeah, it really makes your mind open up a long way, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
Hey, D,
well,
listen.
yeah.
I thought we were going again with my friend Robert Danny Bailey, but we're not going again. We're just continuing with Danny. This is
all
awesome. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, you know what? I mean, it's been years since we've seen each other, and we were like toddlers, I think, when we first
Absolutely.
started.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking, you first met Andrew 35 years ago.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it was amazing to hear that story.
Man, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Bullshit.
Yeah, my diaper was full. I remember. It was a hot day.
Well, you know what? And you can maybe explain what we were doing that day.
No, I don't care to. We were crashed a car into a bicycle, and he screamed.
Well, we can. You know what? I mean, that's the first time I ever met you. So why don't we just open right up with that, and then we can deviate
Don't tell me what to do, Danny.
No, okay. So, How I Met Your Father. Well, that'd be a good
we're going
title
there.
for a screenplay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was a cameraman at CKCO TV in downtown Kitchener, and we had a female host, Betty Thompson, rest her soul,
Yes.
who hosted a morning show. And I don't know how you got involved
No idea.
with making connections with her.
No idea.
But you know what? When I think back, it could have been like I remember. Do you remember John and Sheila Schwartz in Tilsonburg?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So
Moose,
we were there.
my friend Moose, Andy's cousin.
Yeah, Andy's
Okay.
cousin. And so anyway, we were down there, and I remember one time we were at their place, and we're looking over a script that you had written or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, maybe that's when we connected, and then I brought you in, or
It could very well
you
be,
know.
Danny. I don't remember. I was running the karate club at the time.
Right.
Big Kung Fu school.
yeah, no, I mean, I was amazed at meeting somebody who'd actually written a screenplay. I mean,
Yeah, and one that wrote it so well.
Yeah.
well, how many have you written?
17.
Is that right, eh? And have any of them been optioned?
One's the poster behind you that was made that I directed, which turned out to be a piece of crap. One other one was optioned, and it reverted back to me a couple years later. And then I spent the rest of my life falling down and telling people to fall down and lighting myself on fire.
Yeah, I mean, so you haven't even been pushing your old stuff.
Not at all. No, I'm rewriting a couple things right now, actually.
Yeah, totally great.
Yeah, and Andrew's also a writer. He's got some incredible stuff. I wrote film. He writes TV, and some of his stuff is incredible.
Wow. Well, good luck on that, man.
It's awfully sweet.
No,
Yeah.
it's just true.
No,
it's just
yeah.
a fact.
So getting back to
writing.
this story at CKCO TV, the host of our show, Betty Thompson, was going to do a feature on your dad, Randy. And
Okay.
so we're at the corner. I remember exactly where we were, King Street and Scott Street, right downtown.
Yeah.
And anyway, the scene opens up with Betty on camera going, "Today I'm supposed to be interviewing this guy named Randy Butcher. Where is he? He's supposed to be here, like 13 minutes ago or whatever like that." And then all of a sudden, this limousine just tears around the corner. Back door opens up while the car's moving, and your dad rolls up, brushes himself off, and goes, "Sorry, I'm a little late, Betty."
Shit happens.
Isn't
And-
it from
and
that
we had-
photo there? That
no,
day?
no, that's a car show.
Oh, why did I think that was?
And there was no rehearsal or anything. It was like, we talked, I think, just a bit before that, and we had somebody maybe cue the limo, to make the timing right. But we hadn't practiced anything. It was just like all on the fly, one take. You either get it or, you don't really. And so after that opening part, we actually went around the corner to the back of what was then the 3-Minute Deli.
Yeah, between the 3-Minute Deli and the karate club. That's correct.
And it was an open parking lot. And CKCO had a great reputation of going to the 3-Minute Deli all the time. So I think we got permission to have that parking lot closed off, or either you did or whatever. But I mean, I look back and we know we're going to do a burn. We go to this tin garage, aluminum garage that was next door to the parking lot at the 3-Minute Deli, and Betty Thompson was interviewing Randy on the top of the garage, and as they're kibitzing back and forth, Betty's laughing at whatever Randy said, and it sort of gives him a comedic slap, like you, and then your dad falls off the roof, and she's like, doing the
Local
what the
talk
hell-
shows.
Her
What
acting.
what happened, right? And your dad fell into boxes below, and then after that, there was another stunt guy that worked with your dad, and he had a bicycle that he rode right into an oncoming car and rolled off the vehicle. And
Okay.
then for the final attraction, we're going to do a burn. So I shot your dad prepping the whole, before and then during the burn, and then after you tore off a terrible suit.
Yeah, totally.
It was
you
like
don't buy a new
it was like
suit.
off the rack at Salvation Army or something, and
Totally.
and as you said, like you were looking, I think, at the label at the time, going, "Let's not get that brand again," or whatever. It was so funny, but so your dad gave us a burn, and that was it. We sort of solidified a really neat relationship at that time.
Okay.
And I was following his career, and we actually hooked up again from the videotape that I taped yesterday or transferred, it was September 3rd, 1987.
Okay.
And you were involved with a Hollywood stunt show that was showing live at the Paris Fairgrounds during the fair.
Right. A picture of which is behind you on the wall. And I'm on fire and you're actually silhouetted in front of me.
Yeah, which was amazing for me at the time as well. It was, you know, a Hollywood stunt show. It was a lot like the Hell Drivers, whatever. They had precision driving. They had these police cars. They had the clown who, you know, dragged himself through the fire.
For sure.
And, you know, all the regular Imperial or Hell Driver, you know, things integrated into your dad actually doing a couple of stunts. One which was the Perch.
I don't remember.
But anyway, this rickety old, like,
that thing.
8-foot perch your dad got on top of, and then a car comes and drives underneath and your dad falls off of it, right? If you see the structure, I don't know who built that thing, but I mean, it was meant to fall apart.
I think the stunt was standing on it.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, I think what's so great about just seeing this footage, you probably haven't seen it yet.
No, not that I'm aware.
Is that, you know, I mean, you see the youth in your dad, and he's like, you know, and then most of the time, I didn't talk to him. It wasn't like, you know, when I was shooting him and going, "Ooh, how does that smell?" or, you know, how's that feel? Or trying to get some communication, because most of the time I could see in his eyes that he was somewhere else, right? And especially when we're backstage, which was just behind the racetrack at the Paris Fair, they had the fairgrounds with the grandstand live show, right? He's pacing around, he's listening to what's going on, he's trying to figure out the timing of preparation and just, you know, being there on the moment when he needs to come to perform. So it's a back time, all that preparation, right? So I think we even prepped a little too early, because I know you were kind of antsy as well, walking around with the
80s.
glue.
It's probably cocaine.
Yeah. And so anyway, the great thing is that it was, you know, a Hollywood stunt show, and I had a camera. So, I mean, I sort of like was a secondary background actor, you know, because the announcer's going, and the cameras will be rolling, you know, and I'm walking out behind your dad. And then, I don't know what it is, but for those two Burns, there was always a problem trying to get the suit lit and on fire. It's like whoever was in charge of the lighter couldn't get the little torch, you know, lit. And I think both times they just took the lighter and went up to the back leg, your back leg, and, you know, started it. And then you like helped it, you know, move around to get it, you know, on Inferno.
Live shows in the wind that night.
Yeah. No
And
doubt.
so anyway, I mean, what was amazing for me and what I love in the job that I do is that I get to go behind the scenes. I get, like, my camera is a license to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I always loved that part of the job. I mean, it was exhilarating just to know that without the camera, I would never be able to do what I'm doing, right? And that time in Paris with your burn, like, I was like 5 feet away from you when I was like, you know, trying to dance with you at that time, that, you know, you wouldn't fall into me or whatever. But I mean, it's crazy when I think back that stuff like that wouldn't happen today. You know, with all the insurance violations, it would have, you know,
possible. That's true.
It's
you
a
know,
little
I mean,
different for sure.
I mean, even like when we did the burn in the parking lot behind the 3-Minute Deli, we had no EMS, we had no filming permits, nobody.
Whoa.
Well, that was back in the day. I mean, you know, you wouldn't even think about walking down a set of railway tracks to do a shot, you know, of something or whatever with and getting permission. It was always, you know, one of the sacred lines in my life was shoot first, ask questions later. Right. So
cinematic immunity.
You know, by the time you ask permission, you know, you've killed yourself, man, because it's a lot of wasted time. There's a chain of events that sometimes it has to go up through for permission and all that. So, you know, I would rather bullshit my way out of it at the end of the, you know, knowing I've got what I had in the can already. So.
Yeah, I've had to light myself on fire for other events, one of which you shot for the Kitchener Film Festival.
Yeah, the Grand River Film Festival.
But the hoops you have to jump through when you...
I was putting them out that day, actually.
That's true.
Yeah, you were.
That's right, you was there. So, but yeah, the hoops you have to jump through to do that in a public forum with permission.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, because you guys had the fire department there, and it was all, you know, screened off or whatever, fenced off.
So enough about me, Danny. For Christ's sake.
Yeah, well,
Where
It's
have you-
cool, man.
What,
cool.
Okay, so
He's behind the camera, so he's talking about what he shot.
yeah, let's talk about some
Look
of the
into this
stuff.
camera.
Let's talk about some of the stuff you've shot. Like, come on, like you've been all over the world, the Olympics, Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. I don't know where to start.
Okay,
I'm
so
not really good at
you-
talking about myself, but
You sent me which I've not been able to see yet. You DP'd a show at some point in Europe. Is that correct?
yeah. It was called Photo Explorers.
Okay.
I got a great friend that I work with in Toronto, Claude Barnes, with Keep It in the Family Productions. And he had a show back, I'm trying to think, probably early, mid-2000s. And it was called Behind the Camera. And it was stories about photographers and videographers. And, a cool show. It was for Bravo TV at the time when they actually played arts.
Okay.
Anyway, one of the segments that he shot was with these guys called DK Photo Group. And basically they explored abandoned buildings and shot what they called trying to get the art out of the decay. So it was all about lighting. It was all about location. It was all about detail. It was all about abandonment. It was like, decaying everything. It could be a factory. It could be a house. It could be a hospital. It could be a China factory. So we hooked up with these guys. There were 4 of them or 5 of them. Anyway, and we went to Europe. And we had connected through photographers over there to give us the lowdown of some of the great locations where we could still, infiltrate and actually get into and
Without
make art.
permission.
Without permission,
I love
and make art, right? So, I'm trying to think right now the name of the place. It escapes me, but we had a. Did you want to just stop for a second?
Oh, 1 second. Is it your headphones?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, mine too.
All right. Well, maybe we'll just
Yeah, it's all right.
relax for a second, but. I'm just like losing half of my headphone.
one side.
Yeah, it's a little crackly. I mean, it doesn't bother me as long as the
Yeah, if the
master
sound's still
audio,
going through.
I can handle this.
Anyway,
Yeah, sorry guys.
keep talking. Let's
no
go.
worries, man. What's the budget?
You're looking at it.
Okay, where will I pick it up? Okay, so 5 photographers, we go to Europe, and I think we did Germany, Belgium, Holland. And so anyway, there was one place that was just down from where the Battle of the Bulge had been fought.
Okay.
It's sort of like, it's near Holland, but in Belgium.
The Battle of the Bulge.
Bulge, yeah. It was,
Okay.
It's history.
yeah, totally. It's like one of the
Yeah.
most famous.
I would imagine,
There's
but
movies.
I don't know of it.
There's movies.
And what's cool as
Cool.
well is that they're at the crossroads. There's an old tank there as well that commemorates the battle there. But anyway, there was this huge chateau that was built not far from there.
That's house in front.
Copy that. Okay.
And I mean, this thing was so huge. Like some rich guy built it. I don't even know if it was finished by the time he passed away or whatever. But
yeah, Maison is house. Chateau is probably villa or something bigger.
but anyway,
Sorry.
so it's been abandoned for years. In the Second World War, the Germans had actually occupied it, and then after the war, it became like this boys' home, and then that I guess went under or whatever, and it's just been sitting there decaying.
Isn't
right?
that a shame?
Yeah, I mean, if you see this place, you just go, oh my God. So we knew we could probably get in, but we knew as well that there was a caretaker that lived on the property. So we had to be stealth enough to actually get through. So we parked a long way away from where we're going to get into the chateau, the property. And I mean, there were old wires around. We didn't know if they were like for security or whatever. And so we made our way. And we would, at that time, it was just when Google Maps became popular. So we were able to actually pinpoint where we were according to the actual building. And so we finally got up to the building, and we got in through this side door, which was all busted in, and went into the basement. And when I say stealth, when I say stealth, I'm going, like, don't talk,
Okay.
right?
You can't whisper on a podcast
Oh no.
because it's scary.
Dun, dun,
For all the people in their cars going to work in the morning.
dun, 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 dun.
I was just watching the Steven Spielberg documentary. These singing Jaws.
So anyway, I mean, this basement, I mean, a lot of these buildings that we went in, and we were pretty crazy and naive at the time as well, because, I mean, a lot of these places, there was just mold everywhere, and you're walking through water, and maybe you don't even think about, you set your tripod down into whatever, and you're bringing that back to the vehicle, you're bringing it to your hotel room or whatever. I mean, all these things you have to think about. And as well as is the actual air that you're breathing, right? So needless to say, all of a sudden somebody goes, shh, and everybody just sort of stops and goes, and we could hear people walking now.
Really?
Yeah, and we're all like just
So this is becoming a
sphincters
ghost
tightening
story.
up, the aperture's wide open.
We could whisper now.
And it was like, and all of a sudden these two young kids and a girl walk around the corner. These young kids got like a little, camera in his hand.
Oh, okay.
And he spoke French, and our producer spoke French, and trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And he said to the kid, like, we're here, we don't have permission, or what. He says, what do you don't need permission or whatever. Haven't you been up on the main floor? There's a guy up there shooting nudes of two models.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that just took the heat off of everything. And then we just wandered throughout
That's
the
ridiculous.
house. But, I even got my photo taken with one of the models.
Oh, wow. I hope it was was it a female model?
Of course.
I don't have to hope that. I don't care what it is.
Identified as she and her. So anyway, I mean, so after we knew that, I mean, we just went everywhere, and you're walking up spiral staircases that are just like dust. It still has the iron that they used, to hold it, but there's no steps left. It's just like walking up, powder or whatever to get to, the steeple that they had, which was an amazing view as well. But unfortunately, they tore that down about 3 years ago. It's completely gone now.
Oh, what a shame. Can you see the show anywhere? Is it
Yeah.
available?
Well, it's available on YouTube. It's called Photo X with an X. Explorers. And so I mean, another interesting place that we went to was a steel factory that had been abandoned for years, and the only way that we could get into it was through a manhole that was off site.
Oh.
And we
So a tunnel.
Yeah, so we hooked up with two people that were local, and they showed us, they took us down, and we're walking through it. And the cool thing about that was that I had single unit camera at the time, and so I rolled the camera and just let it roll, so it's being passed through the tunnel, as we're going, until we actually popped up inside the factory, this huge abandonment, right? But what I didn't really realize until I actually looked at the video when we got back was like the atmosphere, all the asbestos that was floating around, right? And things that I mean, we had only a little bit of light, flashlights on our heads or whatever, but, at the time I never thought about it, right? But, all those pipes and everything that were in that manhole and the tunnel leading in.
Wow.
And your movement is disturbing all that.
Oh, totally, right? I mean, it's like if you're in a dusty home and you see backlight lighting the dust or whatever. I mean, even in this room, there's probably, if you
No, we don't backlight it at us.
Danny, how did you get started in this? Well, what exactly is it? You're not a cinematographer, you're not a director. What do you do? Why do you get involved in shows like this?
Well,
Do you do concerts and other things as well?
Okay, Danny, how did you start in your career? And tell them what you do.
Okay. I grew up in T.O., Tillsonburg, Ontario. And, yeah, man.
Yeah, big city.
Yeah. And anyway, when I was growing up, my dad would take us to to school in the morning at 20 to 9, and he would listen to CKLW radio out of Windsor. And at that time, it was like one of the biggest radio stations in the country, if not the U.S. at the time. And they had 2020 news out of Detroit, with announcers like Byron McGregor, 2020 news. Death last night in Detroit. Woman ended up getting the Louisville Slugger label right across her forehead. And that was the kind of news that we were being presented like 12 years old. It's like, anyway, because I'd listened to this radio station all the time, they played great music and everything. My dad gave me a transistor radio, I think, when I was like 8. And then when I was 10 years old, he gave me a tape recorder. So it was funny when I got the tape recorder because I was in grade 5. I remember this. And another friend of mine in the same class, he got the same tape recorder, with cassette tape recorder, right?
Okay.
And we would tape right off the TV, the audio off the TV, so we could listen to it later.
Okay. Sure.
So we would trade tapes of the Stones.
Oh, right on.
The Flintstones.
Yeah, that's who I thought you were talking about.
He's going to catch us on this and more today.
Yeah, I know, I see it.
No, but anyway. I really wanted to be a radio DJ. That's what I wanted to do.
Well, you've got a killer voice,
that,
brother.
yeah.
Oh, well, thanks. Anyway, in grade 7, or grade 8, actually, they had public speaking at our middle school. And I ended up speaking about Niagara and the Daredevils. My dad took us to Niagara Falls, including helicopter rides all the time. I was just in love reading about all the Daredevils and all the stunts that were done at Niagara throughout the years. So I decided to public speak about the Daredevils. And now I never won the competition, but I did win my class, which meant I had to speak in front of the whole school.
And speaking,
wow.
Bring that mic just a smidgen in front of your
Yep.
face. Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
And anyway, so, I had no fear of speaking in public. And that, was because I think I was encouraged because I wanted to be in radio, right?
Yeah.
So when it came time to go to, post-secondary school, I chose 2 colleges, Fanshawe in London, Conestoga in Kitchener. Fanshawe in London, they had a live FM station there, which meant right on college campus, you could, go on 6XFM and become, a DJ immediately.
That's cool.
And meet girls.
And then at Conestoga, they actually had a 3-year course, which was 2 years radio, 1 year or plus television. So I thought at the time, well, why don't I, if I'm going to college, I'll take all 3 years. And I went to Conestoga rather than London.
Okay.
Did some fascinating things when I was in college. A friend of mine. Now, here's a question for you. Do you know the cinematographer Keith Murphy?
I do.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
well. Yeah.
Well, Keith was like 2 years ahead of me, actually. We became friends, and he introduced me
Great guy.
to auto racing.
His birthday just went by.
Yeah.
He
We also know his
introduced-
sister. She's a
Oh,
producer.
yeah, totally, right? And anyway, and I know his brother Marty. I don't know if you know him, but
We don't want to ever meet Marty.
he's a good guy. Anyway, Keith introduced me to auto racing, and we ended up going to the Montreal Grand Prix and getting racing or media credentials at the time as well. It was just amazing to, be behind the scenes, right? Go where the public can't go, and then be creative on top of that, covering whatever it is, most of the time, most of my shooting is not drama. I really like documentary. I like action, but I like single camera shooting where you only have one chance. There's no second take because it's reality, right? I
sure.
mean, if you're
Yeah,
shooting a
yeah,
sporting
yeah.
event, if you don't get whatever's happening, then, you go on to the next thing, right?
Totally.
So just to back up a little bit, I wanted to be the DJ. My first summer out of school, I tried to get work everywhere, including the roller rink that used to be Martin's Furniture down there on King Street.
Oh, I know.
Trying to be a radio DJ for roller skating, during the summer. And Tino Monte. I don't know if
Tino
you know.
Monte. I know
Yeah,
Tino.
he was actually managing it at the time, and he looked at my 1-year credential and went, you know, I wouldn't be able to pay you what you're worth, right? And I'm going, dude, I just want a job, right? So needless to say, 3 of my friends got a contract with the local Kinsman to run a TV news show twice a week on cable in Tilsonburg, and they needed a 4th guy, and I ended up, I can't remember, being the 4th guy. And one guy was an animator from Sheridan, and the other 2 were Ryerson radio guys. When it came to using the camera, no one knew how to use it, and I became the camera guy.
So this was it.
This was the turning point of Danny DJ to Danny Videographer, right?
Okay.
I mean, that was, you know, when I started shooting and then editing and just, you know, like just bringing it all together. Really, it was just so creative at the time, right? And TV was totally different back then. You know, people welcome you with open arms, or they always want to know, what are you doing? You know, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it's not like now where, you know, people couldn't care less, or they always want to know.
Because
or
everybody has
There's
a
lot of-
camera
that's
on
the
their
thing,
hip.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it really lost that magic. But I was there to experience it, at least for a few years before, you know, camcorders came out and people started shooting people, paparazzi video or whatever. And, you know, just the question of what are you doing all the time, right? And it's like, anyway. So that was my career at college. Then I was asked to ship film from CKCO TV to CHCH in London, or Hamilton, actually.
To ship it.
That's what Mrs.
Okay.
Doubtfire did.
Yeah, so
Robin Williams got a job shipping cans.
Oh,
Remember that?
anyway, it wasn't shipping. It was basically like a courier service. So, needless to say, most of the stringers or the reporters that CKCO had out in the field were shooting film still, and CKCO was making a transition to video. So they tore out their film processor. So all these films still had to be developed.
Oh.
So they would come into the TV station at CKCO. I would then drive them to CHCH in Hamilton. I would sit and wait for them to be processed through the developer. And I'd
see.
take the film back that night, usually landing at 10 o'clock back in Kitchener, for them to have an hour to edit whatever film that they were going to present that night in the news.
wow, amazing.
What a process.
Yeah, it was even back in the day, right?
And now you just send it with your phone.
Live.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
live.
like-
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everything's in your phone, right? I mean, the only thing we had back then when we were doing news, and I started shooting news at CKCO TV, was a 2-way radio in the car. And, you know, once you got outside of Cambridge, you know, you were snookered. Anyway, so yes, I have an infamous story as well, which involves my very first shoot as a news cameraman at CKCO TV.
Okay.
I was editing at that time. It wasn't on the shooters list or whatever. So our newscast ended at 7 p.m. Ron Johnson was the anchor. And everybody else had gone for dinner, because usually after the show's done, everybody goes to dinner and everybody comes back in for production. So Ron comes down. I'm still in the edit suite getting ready to go for dinner. And all of a sudden the police radio just goes, you know, all this chatter's going on. I was like, what the heck's going on? And then Ron finds out that there was a hostage taking at the Tim Hortons at the crossroads up here at 24 and, is it 8? No, yeah. 24
Yeah,
and 8,
24 and 8.
you know?
Yeah, the Delta there.
The Delta.
The big one.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so I said to Ron, I said, well, I know how to shoot, having shot the cable stuff, right? He said, well, go up to engineering, get a camera, you know, and this is where you got to go. So, man, I get all the gear together and put it in the back of the Mustangs we were using as news cruisers back then, through the hatchback. And anyway, tear off, you know, and the adrenaline's just flying, right? I'm just going, holy shit, hostage taking, you know, at a Tim Hortons, and I'm going to shoot it. So I finally pull up to the Delta, and the Delta is just like screaming with lights everywhere, you know, everything from fire trucks to police cars. I open up the hatchback. I take the camera out. I hook it up. Back then we had a separate recorder shooting
Right. Yeah,
3/4
yeah,
inch
yeah.
tape, right?
Yeah.
I hook all that up. I power up the recorder. I power up the camera.
I've seen you guys as characters in movies before.
Yeah, but you know what? You can always tell they're not good because they always tilt the horizon, like you
Yeah,
know,
they're
the
always
funny.
moving it.
yeah, it's like, you know, the guy can. It's probably a wooden camera anyway.
No, that's a hilarious detail. Anyway,
And yeah, so anyway, I'm just like heading as close as I can get to the event, and then when I settle, I'm looking through the viewfinder, and it's black. I can't get a visual of anything except just seeing the black and white illuminated viewfinder. And I open up the aperture, still nothing. I'm going like, what the fuck is going on? I have no idea what technical problem I've got going on right now. So I start running back to the news cruiser because I was going to try to get a hold of engineering, right? So I'm running back to the car, and my feet get tangled in the actual recorder cable.
Oh, no.
And breaks it right off the aluminum input of the recorder, where you ain't gonna be recording anything. You know, it's like totally broken.
oh fuck.
I get back to the car, can't find my keys. It's like, what the fuck, right? So finally, thank God I didn't lock the car when I left. So I figured, well, they must be in the back hatch. So I had to, you know, take the gear off, hop into the car, hop through the back seat, get into the hatchback, and then feel around. And I found the keys, opened it up, and then, you know, sadly, with my tail between my legs, got a hold of the newsroom to tell them that there won't be any footage coming back of the
fuck.
hostage taking.
So what? Yeah,
Was the lens cap still on the camera?
Well, you know what?
this is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be too easy.
No. The lens cap, of course, you know, I've known to take the lens cap off, but it was almost like that. It was the filter wheel. Now, the camera that I'd used at the cable company, basically for color temperature, it had like a sun and a cloud in a light bulb, right? And that's where you would just rotate this dial. Well, this Sony camera actually had a ring with like 4 filters. One being a cap filter, which was totally black, because back in those days they had tubes for the actual pickups in the cameras.
Burn it in.
Yeah, if you got extensive light coming in, you would burn the filament in the tubes, and you'd have a blob or whatever, and you know, it's just a mess if you got into that point. So yeah, that's when I learned all about a filter wheel, was that day.
Live and learn.
Oh, and speaking of back caps as well, I had a show in 1983. A guy named John Matlock, he and I created a 13 episode show called The Professionals. Now, this is before I met you, because had I met you before that, we would have had you on as one of the professionals for sure. But
Let's redo it. Let's just start it over.
yeah. Well, basically, you know, it was a television show going behind the scenes of people, professionals. Like, we did ambulance drivers at the time because they weren't medical EMS people. We did fire department. And I did stunting as well with, this will bring a memory back probably, Lucky Lot.
Oh yeah, I know. Lucky.
Right? And he had he was doing his stunts. He was in Stratford at the time, I believe. And one of the stunt shows that he was presenting involved a guy named Gary Schroeder, pilot.
Yeah,
He had one of those old, you know what?
like the 172 Cessna with the overhead wing.
Yeah, with a stick and the 2 seats, one behind the other.
It wouldn't be the 172, but yes, I
Yeah.
know the plane.
So his act, Gary's act was basically, you know, looping around, flying, coming really down low, you know, just being a real wild guy, fly behind the horizon, and then he'd reappear and he'd have a clothesline hanging out the back, you know, like he'd gone through some woman's clothesline or something like that. It was pretty funny. But anyway, for the stunt show, he basically, what they did was he took this plane and landed it on the runway on the top of a truck.
So yeah, the truck had a rig built on top of a pickup truck, and as the pickup truck was coming around on the track, Gary would bring his airplane down and land on the top of the truck.
Totally.
So I've never personally met Gary.
Yeah.
But his brother Todd driving that truck is a good friend.
Okay, yeah.
Todd Schroeder.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Gary ended up going up north and becoming a pilot up there for quite a while.
Yeah,
I
they
know
did that for years. I've seen them do the gag, and
Yeah.
I've never had an opportunity to go over and meet Gary
It's
the
a hell of a
pilot. 'Cause
gag now.
When it's over, he would take off.
Yeah.
Toddy I've known forever.
You take off the truck.
Yeah, He'd leave.
Yeah, but wow, man.
Because the truck's still moving.
No, I know, but that's wild.
Yeah.
Well,
It was a good
yeah,
stunt show.
like there was a grid on the top, and then it had two like beveled or not
Yeah, his wheels would drop in.
drop in, and then the truck would go down the end of the runway, turn around, and then he'd take off from the top of the truck.
Because he has lift under his wings.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but
Yeah, so I
that's
mean, I guess
crazy.
it was all it was all practiced about maintaining the same speed for the landing, right?
Sure.
And what was great about that though was I remember the series we got $150. That was our budget, which John and I split $75 each. Right?
$150.
Was that like for dinner?
$150 an episode, and we did it on our own time. Like we weren't getting paid by the hour or anything at CKCO. And the great thing about that stunt though was that, first of all, I could go anywhere, do anything I want. It's like working with you. It's like, the trusted thing. And so I ended up shooting, of course, the whole landing and takeoff from outside on the ground, right? I did it as well from the truck, looking up and having the plane land on the truck. I did it in the plane, landing on the truck. And then we got a guy who would take us up in a Cessna, but it was going to cost $75. And so I had air to air, right? So I had all these great angles to shoot, and it looked really good,
But
right?
you spent your whole budget on that plane.
So I went back to the program manager and asked, any chance that you guys could. No, they wouldn't even suck up to $75 for this amazing shot, right? But the professionals, there was another stunt pilot named Jerry Billings.
I don't know.
He was a Spitfire pilot, and anyway, we hooked up with him.
What's a Spitfire pilot?
Spitfire is a plane that was used during the Second World War. It was like it didn't carry bombs.
It's a little fighter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what size
it's-
caliber bullets it had, but it was basically a shooter and
Right. Okay.
single seat. You know it if you saw it for sure. Prop right on the front of
I
it.
thought
on the
maybe this
nose.
was like a type of pilot. I wasn't sure what you meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, during his career, he'd been shot down behind enemy lines, I think, twice, and actually escaped as well. So I mean, he had quite the background and history.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember who owned the plane. It was a movie star, Clint. Jeez. Anyway, it might come to me. Not Eastwood.
Okay, I was gonna say.
But anyway, he had a decathlon and he had a farm and he had his own airstrip. So we went down there because I couldn't fly with him with the Spitfire. I could only get, ground shots or whatever. For the decathlon, though, he took me up, and this plane as well had the pilot seat and then the seat right behind the pilot. I strapped my 3/4-inch tape recorder to the back of the seat. And I've got my camera on my shoulder now. And of course, the cable that goes to the back of the recorder. And we take off. And the bastard, as soon as we took off, he spiraled the plane like 3 times and then pulled it out and went around, right? Now he's gaining altitude. And at one point, he did what I think was called the screwdriver, if I recall. And that was where he went straight up.
Let the plane.
And then he'd get to the peak and he'd stall the engine.
Yeah.
Right? And now you're twirling to the ground.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's
Before he
always
then
fun.
pulls out again,
I've seen
right?
that kind of stuff before. Yeah.
So anyway,
And you're in the plane.
I'm in the plane. By the time he gets done doing all this stuff, we're doing rolls, we're doing all that crazy stuff. Like he wanted to impress me, right? I mean, he did. But when I got out of the plane, my hand was cramped. Like for 20 minutes, I swear to God, like that.
Trying to hold the horizon.
Just trying to keep it steady as possible, right?
Trying to hold the horizon.
So anyway,
And not puke.
well, yeah, I mean, fuck. So anyway, I get back to the TV station to look at the footage, and when we're doing it's called the screwdriver. I think it's a screwdriver. All of a sudden, a third of the frame is starting to go black. And then all of a sudden, half of the frame is going black. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And the camera that I was using, I remember it was a Hitachi FP21, had a back cap. So if the camera ever fell over, this cap would just close the back of the lens so that the tubes wouldn't get burned. So centrifugal
Interesting.
force was pulling the back cap across the actual back of the lens.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, it was one hell of a way to learn something like that. But
Wow.
Wow.
You know, the last time I saw Lucky Lot was at a live sort of Hell Driver show.
oh yeah,
And we got to talking. He great guy, great experience, great stories. But he'd written a book.
oh did he?
Yeah, and it was no longer in print and no longer available. And I went, darn. I sure wish I had that book you could sign. He said, well, I have 2 left, and some people deserve them and some people don't. And here you go.
Oh my gosh.
So he gave
Really?
he gave me his book, signed it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, if you
Is
you
he
see
around?
No, he'd be.
He passed away.
He was quite old even when
Oh, I
we
see.
were working with
Okay.
him. But the photos, like, I mean, he was really popular, I would say, right after the Second World War, right? Is
Yeah.
when, you know, things really got back to semi-normal and were
They would
progressing.
jump cars and crash cars, falling like 15 and 20 feet, crashing the cars off of ramps. And they would tie hemp rope around their waists.
Before seatbelts were even in, right?
It's crazy.
And if you
Wow.
look at the cars are amazing. Most of them had Lucky's name, like Lucky Lot, right on the side. It's like
Yeah.
the Chipwich guys, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
you know, all those stuff. And I was really surprised as well, getting onto another story where we're talking about stunt driving, that Blair was actually with Paul Riddell and the Hell Drivers.
Yeah, Blair toured with them for quite a while.
Yeah, well, he posted something not long ago, a video or something that and I just went, oh my
Yeah.
God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's Blair in that car exploding on that poster behind you.
Oh my, is that right, eh?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I actually got to ride with Paul Riddell one time.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Paul Riddell, but
No.
he's I think from Nova Scotia.
I believe so.
Right? And he's been with the Hell Drivers, the Imperial Hell Drivers, you know, forever.
The Williams brothers in London were the Trans-Canada Hell Drivers.
And I'm sure that they played Woodstock as well as that they played Tilsonburg at the grandstand. Would come in and do their stunt shows. But the time that I met Paul was at the COE, the Central Ontario Exhibition in Kitchener, and he had a stunt show there. And I got in the car, the passenger side, to shoot what he calls the high ski.
Right.
And that's when he actually takes the car up on 2 wheels and he drives it like all
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
around the track on 2 wheels and then drops it back down, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, you know, yeah, it's pretty awesome when you're on the outside. When you're on the inside, Paul must have been like 300 plus pounds. I mean, and
he's a big man.
he's up here, right?
Yeah.
I'm down here because the car's, you know, like on its side. And I'm going like, and it was so funny. Just before we actually did the high ski, he handed me this pillow, right? And I thought, well, he says, that's for you to use with the camera, right? When we land.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, we end up doing the loop or whatever, and he says, okay, we're gonna bring her down now, right? And so all of a sudden I get the pillow and I put it by the window and the camera,
Okay.
and then bang, the car comes down, and now we're, you know, driving normally. And he looks at me and goes, what the fuck are you doing? That was to go between your head and the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of stunts, things like that I remember as well. And another one at the COE that I actually shot was, do you know the name Benny Koski?
I don't.
Boom Boom Benny?
Nope.
Well,
One of these guys that blows up a coffin?
yes,
Yeah.
like the original guy.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, and it was so funny because it was this kind of little shitty stunt show that they were putting on at the COE grandstand during the exhibition. Like they had a guy who walked up, you know, stairs, not stairs, but a high tower, and then was going to jump into a bag.
Right.
Had a bunch of firecrackers on his back, and he'd light them off just as he, you know, basically did a header into the bag. And then they had another guy who took a snowmobile and he jumped ramp to ramp in the summertime.
I might know him.
And then there was Boom Boom Benny. And like I had no idea even what was happening at the stunt show because I was there just to shoot, you know, basically visuals for that night's newscast. And, you know, this happened at the COE. So there's no introduction except the announcer saying, you know, Benny's just returned from a burn clinic in Cleveland, Ohio, and has made it here tonight for the show, you know. And he's dressed like Evel Knievel. He's got the leathers on, the, you know, stars, stripes, all that, right?
Oh yeah, classic.
I don't think he had a cape. I don't believe he had a cape. But he may have had a
You're
cape.
not a true daredevil without a cape.
Yeah, well,
No.
maybe he did have a cape. But anyway, so he had an assistant, and he had a casket, a wooden casket, and it was painted up, you know, star stripes and everything. And he gets into the casket, and then, you know, his beautiful assistant walks away, and then, of course, the announcers, you know, but Benny's going to start blowing himself up here. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Let's do a really big countdown. 10, 9, and it goes all the way down to 1, and then all of a sudden, boom! The whole thing fucking explodes, right? Like, I mean, it was probably balsam wood anyway, but
Sure,
the
sure.
fact is that, you know, there was shrapnel everywhere. There was smoke. There was all this. And then Benny gets up wobbling and, you know, gives his arm in the air like, hey, and everybody applauds. And that's his gig for the night, right?
Some people, what they
So
get
I
paid
ended
to
up meeting up with him again years later. And I knew who he was, so I had to get my photo with him and everything. But it was down at... you know, it's now Toronto Motorsport Park, Cayuga Dragway.
Yeah.
And I think at that night, he actually blew himself up in one of those Johnny on the Spots, you know, like the washrooms, portable washrooms.
Okay, yeah.
That was his
that was a
casket.
sight.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But you know what? As well, I remember. I think I have his card or something like that. But you know, it was like Benny Koski. It had his, you know, his address in Florida, and then it has, you know, private parties, bar mitzvahs, you know, like all these
We'll blow up
little
your
things that
private party.
he would do. And I mean, he was really famous. He was on the Tonight Show actually with Jay Leno years back.
okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so another stunter that I ran into over my career. Another one was Karel Suchek.
I don't know.
He was Yugoslavian, I believe, but he went over Niagara Falls.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
And
Don't tell me you were in the barrel with them.
no, but we
Holding that camera.
another features producer had actually hooked up with him long before he went over the falls, and actually was with him in his garage when he was building his new barrel, or his barrel. His stunning career, actually, before that, I remember one of his big jumps he did at the CNE, actually, where they actually had a ramp built at the top of the old CNE grandstand, and he came down and jumped, I don't know how many vehicles, like within the old CNE stadium or exhibition stadium.
Like in a
On,
car?
like,
Kind of?
you know,
No, he was on a bike,
motorcycle.
motocross.
Oh, on a
yeah,
okay.
yeah, totally right.
I think it's interesting that you started out as a child doing, you know, your speech about daredevils in Niagara, and then work with this guy.
Oh, well, yeah, you know, I mean, but that's my interest, right? I was just like, you know, trying to follow my dreams and be involved in things like that. And anyway, I never met him personally, but I'd met him on the phone quite a few times, because it was Lucky Lot, actually, that connected me with Karel Suchek. And Karel and I went back and forth on the phone quite a few times, and you know, he was like, "Well, how can I trust you?" You know, and you're trying to say, "Well, you know, I don't know how do you trust somebody, right?" You know, with keeping it secret. I mean, that was the whole thing. You know, you can build a barrel in your garage and you don't get fined, right? But as soon as you break the law, then it's a problem, right? And so anyway, I ended up. This was during the professionals. Going to my program manager, who wouldn't give us the $75, and I said to him, "Listen, this is what I've got on the burner," and he wouldn't let me do it at all because of the liability of the station being involved in somebody committing, you know, a
illegal
crime,
act.
an illegal act, and me shooting it while I knew it was being
okay.
shot, and becoming an accomplice and all that.
Right.
But he was a really crazy guy. I mean, he did the barrel drop. I think it was like 1984, like July 4th or something, right? Because a lot of people would be at Niagara Falls on the holiday, and he made it successfully. He got out bumped and bruised, big gash on his forehead, looked really good on TV. And he proclaimed at the time that he was going to be the last of the daredevils. That if somebody was going to do a barrel drop tomorrow, he'd be there the next day to be the last, of
wow.
the daredevils, right? He was a really crazy guy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he passed away not long after that. He,
That's quite a statement.
well,
Doing what?
reenacting the stunt at the Houston Astrodome. Basically, what he had was a large container, and I don't know how many feet it was, maybe like 15 feet deep of water. And he had a barrel. Wasn't the same one, I don't think.
That
Or
he was
maybe it
dropping
was.
from a crane or something?
He was dropped from a crane within the Astrodome was like the Sky Dome where it had a retractable roof. This one was closed, right? And they had a crane in there, and they took him up. Now, the actual height of the falls from the top to the bottom is 168 feet. I remember this one for sure.
Okay.
And so he was raised up the same height as him going over the falls. So the stunt was they were going to let go of the line, and he and his barrel are going to crash into the water, in this big vat of water.
Yeah. And he died doing this.
What ended up happening is when the barrel dropped, it had moved over a little bit and actually hit the side of the container of water.
Oh,
Sure.
for fuck's
And he was killed immediately.
Yeah, a couple inches up there translates to a few feet down here.
And I remember talking to the manager of the Houston Astrodome, who I ran into, and conversation led to one thing or another. And he said, you know what? What he didn't realize is that a place that big has its own weather within that area.
Sure.
Right? There's little winds going around or whatever. And that was actually moving the whole barrel.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and so, I mean, had he been stable and dead on bullseye,
Then it may have-
probably would have lived, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But when it came down, yeah.
Although I picture like hitting a surface of water is a hard. It's pretty hard just hitting water. But then with the Niagara Falls. Not that I think anybody should be jumping Niagara Falls, but at the very least that water's pushing the water down.
This is where my thoughts went, is exactly as a stunt guy. I don't think I've ever seen a barrel go over Niagara Falls to know. But as it goes over, it stays within
The top.
The falling water.
It stays in the hydro action of the water falling with it.
And pushing it.
As it hits the ground, the
Flips.
well, the water underneath on the bottom, the river,
Yeah.
is being churned up by the falls. So there's a break, just like
Yeah.
bubbling a high dive, and the barrel goes with that water into the river water. Well, this guy's expecting to just fall from the sky
Into a
freeform, into a flat thing of water.
Surface of water. Yeah.
That impact would
Might
have
as well
been
been
incredible.
cement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you'd think. But turns out that's not how it happened anyway.
Yeah, and if you hit the edge of the pool, that's even
It's
worse.
Even worse.
Apparently,
Yeah. And
Not to laugh about it is very sad.
no, it's
No,
not, yeah,
it, totally
it's
right.
not funny whatsoever.
No.
But if you knew the guy, you'd know that
Jesus Christ, I can't believe somebody would do that.
you had to know him, right? He was just livid. I think as well, he, for one of his stunts, took his motorcycle and rode it to the Arctic, North Pole,
That'd be a trip. I'd love
Yeah,
to
that'd
try
be
that.
insane.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know why everyone does the waterfall, does the Niagara Falls, and they don't do like a barrel down the Egypt pyramids, or I don't know.
You go ahead.
Do all the wonders.
Yeah,
in a
do all
barrel.
the wonders. Do all the wonders.
I'm just being an idiot. Imagine
Wow,
going
you know
over the
what
Grand Canyon.
If Andrew does all the wonders, will you shoot it?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Can we start tomorrow?
I'll give you $75 a
I need a
day.
barrel.
Hey, right on. 75.
Yes.
Does that include craft services?
I don't know.
We'll get
No,
mom
break-
to cut some cheeses.
Cut some cheeses. Yeah. So, I mean, Niagara as well has attracted so many crazy people looking
Sure,
for fortune
totally.
and fame anyway,
course.
right?
A tightrope walking and all that stuff.
Here's a stunt that I've always had in my mind that I think would be unbelievable. If you notice on the
You can
horseshoe,
do this, bud.
yeah, for sure. The Horseshoe Falls, there's like this little tiny island It's not really, it's like rocks and bushes and little trees or whatever. And I always thought, how cool would it be? Maybe if you were promoting something like a soft drink or whatever, you're on a chaise lounge and it's a tight shot, head to toe of you. And then you pull back. And there you are sitting above Niagara Falls. I mean, I thought that would be a great location for that type of idea.
But see, the thing about that is this: we would have a helicopter putting somebody down on that. Like
Yeah.
everything would be taken out by helicopter.
Oh, you'd have
It's
to.
incredibly
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's do it.
how about another one? This guy is not really known as a stunt person, but the Amazing Randy.
Is he an escape artist or something?
Well, he has done escape.
Is that the guy with the big white beard?
Yep.
He's always trying to debunk
Yep.
magicians.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a Canadian actually.
Oh, really? I don't know that.
But you know, spent his time teaching at the University of Buffalo before he was retiring down in Florida.
The Amazing Randy?
The Amazing Randy.
They usually put that in front of most Randy's names.
Yeah. And he always carried a check for like $1 million in his pocket if you could actually prove that you were psych.
Yeah, he would. That's what it is. He debunks psychics and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Uri Geller, he
Right.
debunked on the Tonight Show.
Right.
Like just by, like, what was great? Uri Geller, you know that guy?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
You know, bend the fork or whatever
Yeah,
and
yeah.
break off. Well, anyway, unbeknownst to him, one night on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson back in the day, they had invited Uri as the main guest. But unbeknownst to him, they had the Amazing Randy there as well, who said basically, you know, and one of the things he could do is actually, no, there was another guy actually. But anyway, he debunked Uri right on live TV, you know, and Uri had to go like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling right tonight.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
it's not working.
It's not working or whatever. And he debunked another guy as
Oh, my
well
God.
on another TV show that could stare at a big page out of a book and actually
Turn the
flip the
page.
pages,
Yeah,
right?
I've seen that.
And so Randy debunked that guy too by, you know, putting a little cue card up in front of his mouth because he was just blowing the pages across, right?
Yeah.
Oh my, really?
That's the kind of trickery that went on, you know, for
Yeah,
years
yeah.
back in the day. But getting back to the Amazing Randy is that he did this bit where they were down at Niagara Falls and everything, and he's talking about different stunts. And then he says, and then there was this guy, you know, he hanging above the Horseshoe Falls from a crane on a line, you know, and he's got the straitjacket on.
Yeah.
And then you watch the guy get the straitjacket off, and it's Randy. Like, it was so great because he actually, you know, he introduced the stunt from the side of the railing,
Oh, okay.
and then they cut to the
Sure.
the stunt, right? But I mean, back in the day, that was like, holy.
You're like, what the hell the fuck do you do that?
Or have you seen the one where David Copperfield went over the American Falls? There's not too many stunts at the American Falls because it's so rocky underneath. But Copperfield, what was it now? I think he was on a. Man, sorry, it escapes me now. He's either on a ski-doo or he was in a box.
Really?
And he went over the American Falls and they shot it from behind.
Those are very similar things, so I get your
Skidoo
confusion.
or a box.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure it was the box. Yeah, because it wouldn't have worked if he was on a sea-doo because you'd see him sea-doo. So anyway, the stunt goes like he's dropped over the edge of the falls. It's shot from behind, so all you see is the lip of the falls, the water, you know, and the mist and everything. And it's like, what the fuck happened, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this helicopter comes up in the same shot, and he's dangling, you know, on a line with his foot in the
A loop.
loop, coming up and just blowing everybody away. Like, what just happened?
So what did just happen?
I don't know. It was a malfunction apparently on the stunt that he was
Okay.
going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but you know, not too many stunts at American Falls though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
More suicides, I think, than
Yeah.
yeah. Do you ever shoot stuff like that? No, I'm
suicides.
just kidding.
Loss of life. One time I thought, shooting funerals would
Now,
be
see,
all
no,
right.
this is no. This actually brings
They're
up
very exciting.
this brings up an interesting question though. Throughout your career as a videographer for news and sports and whatever, you've done a ton of stuff, Danny. And people that are listening to this podcast will never ever get a sense of all that you've done. It's absolutely incredible, your career. But have you ever shot something? Have you ever been shooting something and something else happens? Like you caught something by mistake that was absolutely incredible. Like ghosts in a French.
I've done a ghost show.
No, I mean,
I can't watch those paranormal
ended up
shows.
the
being
amazing
nudes.
Randy's going to show up and tell you it's not.
Did you hear that? It's like,
Yeah, I've never been into those either because none of them are successful in what is supposed to be.
all the electronics
Like, what
and
is-
lights and everything
Yeah,
they have
well,
on their
it's so- they're so
gadgets,
silly.
and it's like, but it's amazing how many shows there are like that and how many years they've been going on, and it's because of the audience, right?
You don't have to answer my question. It's all good.
Oh, I will answer your question. Well, you know what? I mean, yeah, a lot of things that happened where I didn't expect it to happen, but mostly in sporting events, motorsport mostly,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden my frame is filled with something that's happening and going on. I mean, I've got a lot of those where all of a sudden, you're following the puck, as I would say.
Yeah.
You're following the action, and then all of a sudden the action deviates from what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
And that's, when you capture the action, and hopefully you're at the right place at the right time and you're rolling.
Do you ever get a sense that you want to put the camera down and just watch this unfold? I mean,
No.
it's rare, but not. I shoot some stunts. Like I shoot the stunts of people that I hire and whatever, with my camera, my phone, and but sometimes things may not have worked out as well as I had hoped or whatever. And when I watch my playback, it's always because I'm now looking
Right.
at what's happening as opposed to me shooting what's happening. But
No, a lot of the times, you know what? I really take myself away from reality when I'm looking through that viewfinder. It's a totally different world. When we were doing the professionals, we were doing ambulance drivers, and then we were at a crash one night where, unfortunately, this man and his girlfriend got into a car accident, and we had to evacuate him to hospital. And in the back of the car, I remember the ambulance attendant just trying to keep him, sedated, and the guy was just full of blood, and it was just crazy what was going on. But because the adrenaline's going, and I'm in the back of the ambulance with him as we're going to hospital, and he's just the emotion that was going on, even with the driver. Not even myself, though. I was just totally taken away from that. Never even thought about it. And we got to Grand River Hospital and extricated the guy out of the ambulance. And, I couldn't go into the hospital, but I just shot it as the doors, closed and the gurney's going through. And then went back in the floor, shot a shot of the floor of the ambulance, and it was just like blood everywhere.
Must have been hard to get him to sign the non-disclosure agreement.
He's kind of cramped up at that time. He just put the pen in his hand and just wiggled it around. But needless to say, the very next day, the attendant and I were in a edit suite at CKCO watching the footage, and that's, I think, when it really struck me, that after the fact, and you're looking at the footage, that's when things are really sinking in. Like, holy fuck, like you didn't feel that way when you're shooting it or acquiring it, but it was just the emotion and looking at it after and going like, whoa,
that's interesting. You kind of set yourself aside from the actual event while you're shooting.
Yeah, and it's really, it's troubling that way as well. I mean, I wouldn't be shooting it if suddenly you had a heart attack or you needed assistance or whatever, and there's nobody else around. I'm not going to stand over you and, do that. I mean,
Well, I was actually going to just ask if you're at an event like the Grand Prix or something, and a car goes off the track or something. Obviously, I guess you start wanting to go there, right? And you want to see the tire fly off the car and the explosion. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get hurt. But
See,
is your first reaction to move the camera to it, or is it that you look first and then go like what's
Or do you continue shooting the race and not pay attention to the accident where the car went into the audience?
I mean, it really depends on what you're doing. A lot of races that I've shot are like multi-camera, like for
Sure, of
Speed
course,
Week, you know.
yeah.
So you're at Moseport or you're at Mount
And you're on a
Tremblant.
headset and the
Yeah,
director's directing.
yeah, totally right. So I mean, in that case, they would call you off of it. But in most cases, anyway, that's going to take you to commercial break or whatever because there's yellow flags around the track, right? But for the most part, you like I said, you follow the puck. You just try to maintain, you know, your frame. Sometimes, you know, you don't look around from the viewfinder, and I've known cameramen, like I shot one crash at Moseport where I picked up the crash and then the car went by me on the other side of the track, but just down from me was another camera guy on scaffolding, and that car like was just inches away from the side of him. You know, like if he'd been out looking like that, I'm sure he would have got hurt somehow. But
wow.
you know, and it's treacherous as well when you're shooting auto racing. There's all kinds of debris that comes off the track, like, you know, the rubber from tires and things like that, or just rocks or whatever. One of my most infamous that I recall that I didn't like, but it was at Mount Tremblant, and it was an Audi. I was on corner 3. So they get the start race, they cut to another camera, and they cut to me, and the cars come over the hill, and they're going to go like that. And I'm on a big studio camera, and I'm just behind the guardrail. And of course, I've got, you know, 2 or 3 layers of old rubber tires in front of me, right? So the Audi that I'm tracking comes up over the hill, and all of a sudden I notice he's not going right. He's coming straight towards me. And as soon as he gets off the asphalt, he's on grass, which, you know, picks the vehicle speed up even more. And he came in totally right straight towards me. And I just, you know, sphincter tightened up and just held it. And then all of a sudden,
Wow.
bang, this barrage of water that's been stinking in these tires for like 3
Oh my
years.
God.
It is all over. It smelled like, you know, swamp water for sure, right? And I mean, and then when the car hit, I see him going that way, and I just followed him like that. It was like slow motion, right?
And you're like, fuck. What the
And I remember the director going, man, I got to take that out and put it on my reel. So when I'm talking about camera guys and following the accidents, that's the one, right? And I said, yeah, this is Danny on camera 3. You mind if I take a few minutes and just wipe the swamp water off the camera and myself?
Oh man.
Where
Yeah.
was this? Mount Tremblant?
What trouble? Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've seen like a YouTube video of like a close call or something, but of like a rally race,
Yeah.
you know, and the car comes flying up, and of course it goes into the wall and all this stuff. And there's a photographer standing by the wall, and all he does is take one step back. Car goes whipping by, and then he just starts catching that.
Rally racing is definitely crazy. I mean, I did World Rally Championship one time in Portugal. And some of the places and locations that we went to, and you're just watching, like I'm shooting,
In
trying to get
Portugal,
the,
I can imagine.
yeah, I'm trying to get the best angles. And I mean, there's no barriers when you're watching rally race,
Yeah.
right? There's no, you know, police line or rope or guardrail or whatever. And you see those people hanging out, and all of a sudden the car comes shooting up over the hill
crazy.
and taking air, and you
Crazy.
know, yeah. I mean, if you want to see crashes, that's the place to go. Actually,
Man.
while we're talking, why don't you just take your phone there and Google on YouTube Targa, Newfoundland car house crash.
Targa,
Newfoundland
Newfoundland, and
car house. I think that'll get you there.
car house.
Did
Oh,
you shoot
yeah.
that?
Yeah, this is one of my shots that is on.
Can we share that on this?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, totally.
Well, here, I'll put it up on the...
Yeah.
Jesus.
So this is your perspective right here.
Yeah, I was the only guy there.
So, that wasn't supposed to happen, right?
No.
Look at this guy's just getting out.
It's
set up
hilarious.
with
It
a-
just kind of just stopped. It was awesome. Some guy's house.
This guy just getting out like it is his house.
That's funny.
Michael Lully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see if I can put that up. That's funny. Andrew did something similar a while back on a TV series. It's shooting. It's on air now, I guess. I won't mention it. Doesn't matter. But he had to drive a pickup truck and slam into an immovable object at at speed, and the driver of the truck in the show dies.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that was fun.
Wow.
But I didn't fuck up my win at the end of a race. I did it because I had to do it on purpose.
It's so funny.
Wow, that's wild. That'd have been fun.
Yeah.
I mean, but the car could have just been 10 feet forward and come your way.
Well, I recall as well, like basically we had a team of 3 or 4 videographers, single camera shooting, right? Dropped off at different locations during the legs of the rally.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this sweeping corner, and rather, you don't want just a straight on shot,
Absolutely.
boring, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up choosing that spot. And it's funny because before the actual rally at that leg would start, they would send officials around. And they would drive to make sure everything's clear from the track or whatever before they start the leg of that rally race. And I remember I thought, okay, I'm going to get dropped off here. This is where I'm going to stand, but I'm going to wait until the rally car, the officials go by. So I hid over behind one of the other houses, and all of a sudden the orange lights on the official car comes by and everything. And then I went, okay, good. And then I went and set up because I thought at the time as well, just the apex of that corner, they might have said, listen, we don't want you standing there. If you can go over there, you go over there, right? So I didn't want to jeopardize that. And luckily, it all worked out. And, it was pretty fun. It was, that no one got hurt. See, that's the big thing as well, is the fact that if you're in a situation where you can get the greatest crash, but if somebody dies, chances are it ain't going on air.
Sure.
Right.
Makes sense.
You just take it up to the part of the incident or the collision or whatever, and then that's it. The fact that I was able to walk up to the car and these guys are getting out of the car was just like, wow, this is gold, Jerry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Because if one guy was sitting in there bleeding or whatever, and I don't know what would have happened at that time.
The video is kind of funny. They did get out so casually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know. It's not.
It'd have been even funnier if the
And Mike
lady
Lully,
that owned the house just came out and
yeah, nobody was at the house at the time, but Mike Lully, the driver, I met him years after that, actually. I got a great photo of him and I at Pearson's Air Canada Lounge. He was going to Italy. I was going to Germany or something like that. But I finally went up to him and said, hey, I'm the guy, and he went, oh, wow. And, we shook hands or whatever. But I didn't know him when he crashed. And that's why I didn't say anything to him, because when he got out of that car, the look on his face.
Yeah, he wasn't happy.
Right? It was just like,
yeah.
it was all right to talk to the other guy, but not Mike at that time. So,
Okay. Well, he was the one steering the car.
I know. It was such a this Mike Lully has Ferraris, and he wasn't just some amateur off the street, right?
No,
this guy
no.
had raced cars
Don't
before.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, it was a Subaru, just in case if anyone wants to know.
Well, I was just going to ask, this is obviously very exciting work, to be the camera in the car that's on 2 wheels or in the plane. But you said when you were young, you were just kind of like going at it. You're just trying to get work. It doesn't work the same anymore, I don't imagine, for a young kid trying to get into videographer.
Yeah, well, you know what the business is like these days, right? Everyone has a camcorder. Everyone's a professional.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Well, the old saying, right?
100%.
Yeah. You don't want to pay a little bit more for a professional. Well, then,
Yeah.
give a couple dollars to an amateur and then tell me what it's all about, right?
Yeah. Totally. Well, it's amazing what people are catching today on their cameras. Like,
Oh,
it is
you know what? And
so
I'm always jealous. I'm going like, I don't know how many minutes of video or film that I've shot in my life, but it's amazing that even when you're in a situation where the public isn't, the public's in a place where they can be, and they capture some crazy stuff, like somebody has a camera first day and all of a sudden, it's viral, right?
And it's excellent quality.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're right. It is. I mean, you shoot 4K on my phone right now. I mean, the funny thing is, I always say to people, I got this new camera, and I show them my phone, and I said, and it came with a phone app.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Because
it's pretty much what they do.
Yeah,
it's funny though. There's never great quality during UFO videos or ghost videos.
Yeah, totally, right? They need new filters for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's neat, man.
No one's ever been able to catch Sasquatch on a good quality camera.
Yeah.
We should get Danny out there.
Yeah, you gotta.
No, we'll put you in the suit, man. We'll recreate that gorilla walking old 16 mil film that is an infamous Sasquatch video, right? It's like the Zapruder film in a way. It's always your go-to when you want to talk, Sasquatch. You go with that. If you want to talk assassination, you go with that.
Well, that's a good point, though. I mean, how often are people catching stuff that they're making up? They must be making shit
exactly.
up.
And with AI now, I mean,
you can't capture.
And look at how many things are being taken away from your profession as well with computer animation, or totally different way of capturing things or creating them. And the scary part is that a lot of the stuff looks so real. Right? I mean, sometimes
really
it's difficult. I almost have to freeze a frame, zoom in, check out the pixels along the insert or whatever, just to see what's going down. I'm always amazed at a lot of that stuff, and the quality is pretty good, but I don't know. It's just changed so much, right? I mean, when you think of how much, like, my son has shown me this program where it takes a character's face from one movie and puts it into a scene of another one, right? And it's seamless, and because it's AI, it's totally new, it's creative, right? Even though you've taken one copywritten image and another copywritten image and melded the two together, mashed them up, now you have something totally different that looks really cool. But I even know as a Getty photographer, they won't even allow you to do AI or take AI and submit it for stock footage, just because they don't know because of the rights.
Right. But AI is the new artist.
Oh, it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago it was like getting filter apps for your camera and going, wow, look at this, this is great. Now you can get them where they take out the background and fill it up with anything you want, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at the movies these days that you guys are doing, and like how much green screen, and like how, like a lot of
movies. That's the entire movie.
But you've seen green screens that are going like, holy fuck, look at how big that green screen is, right? And you just go, whoa. But
yeah, it is wild.
And as well, I mean, I find it difficult. Well, I find it sorry for the actors, because a lot of the times, I mean, it's imaginary, right? I don't know if you know this, but I sent your dad a link. I shot a cartoon in Hamilton at CHCH called Sons of Butcher.
Oh, really?
That cartoon where we actually used...
It was about you.
Yeah, we used real heads, but it was animated, flash animation for the bodies of the cartoons, right? So, I mean, we had that back then, but even now, I mean, it's just, the transition is just amazing.
Yeah, it is crazy. Sometimes I think that eventually this kind of thing is going to take over, even just human emotion will just be, eventually there'll be no purpose for anything.
Well, I even find it sad as well that, there's apps now that you can get, or programs that you can get, that will create the narration for you in a film with an AI, voice. I want a female voice, about 45,
Chat GPT, man.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. I watched a video about it. It's crazy.
It is.
You type it in and it's typing out, it's writing movies.
Yeah. What accent do you want? I mean, there's so many different programs out there that.
Now, a friend of mine who works at Lionsgate, or either that or he knows he works in entertainment, but I'm not sure. Maybe he's just through friends or something. But they had mentioned that all their new writers have to use typewriters.
Oh, old school stuff.
Yeah, they have to go old school just to know they're getting, I guess,
the real deal.
Yeah, that they're getting the real deal,
That's
which I find very interesting. I don't know how well it's going to work for anybody, but that's neat.
Couldn't you just do it with the laptop offline?
Yeah. Listen, I don't have Wi-Fi here.
Yeah.
I'm at the cottage.
Excuse me, do we have any whiteout available?
So much for a paperless office.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it sounds unbelievable, but
Can someone empty my trash bin? I got so much paper.
Well,
here.
you know,
yeah.
grocery stores are going back to paper bags. Why couldn't they? Film industry go back to typewriters.
Yeah, I hope that we go back a little bit. Just
I remember in college when I went there, which was 79 to 83, we had to fight to try to get a typewriter, like all hours of the day, right? You'd only have so many public typewriters in the college or in your actual course. But it's not like we had typewriters in our home, right? It's
Right.
at least electronic.
Yeah, years ago, a buddy of mine worked for IBM.
Oh, yeah.
And I bought 2 typewriters, identical, so I could have one at the karate club and one at my house. And I tabbed them all the same so I could take my scripts back and forth.
Nice.
Yeah, went through a lot of paper.
Yeah, and ribbons and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy. So what are you doing now, Danny?
what am I doing now?
Hey, while we're talking about that, show
Yeah.
Andrew that book there, the art one. This was during COVID.
Yeah.
Danny was
I was house ridden. A lot of the series that I was shooting, just went into reruns or whatever. So I started creating digital photos. Just basically, I've got a few programs that I use, including Photoshop, and just started going crazy every day, giving me something to do, something to
a creative outlet during COVID. Show the.
Can I lift this and
yeah,
show the camera?
yeah, no worries. Yeah, do whatever you want to do.
This is for
And
D.
you could even hold it upside down because
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about it is that all of my images are on transparents.
I don't know if the
So the background can be any color you want, and all of the shots as well are like 8K.
What do you mean when you say these are shots?
Well, they're images. They're digital images. Though I call it shots, but a digital image.
Like I figure, yeah. So what are you shooting though exactly here?
I'm not shooting anything. What I'm doing is actually creating.
It's very cool. It's neat stuff.
Have you ever heard of Mandelbot?
No.
Well, it's three-dimensional fractals. And these are fractals as well. So it's almost like it's almost like AI in a way, but for me as well, like I have the last say in how I want it to look, what color I want it to look, what shapes I want to include in it, how I want to stretch the image, how I want to just make the palette, work any way I can.
that's a lot of images in this book.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I have over
It's
1,000
interesting.
now.
That's cool.
But if you get into maybe some in the back there that have black backgrounds, I like them maybe the best. But
Oh, look at this. That's cool.
and because they're all in 8K, the quality is outstanding. I mean, you could stand like this far away from it and still see all the details sharp and clean.
It's interesting. This kind of stuff would actually look really cool blown up and
Yeah,
put on a wall.
it would. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was
Wow.
thinking.
Yeah, so right now I basically have this housing organization in Waterloo that are looking at all of these for potential images for their new condos that they're putting up
Like the
in
display.
Waterloo. Yeah, to display in the condos. This company's got a new. I think they're going to open up in Cambridge as well, but it's basically
Cool.
like a hotel, but they're condos. So you have all the furnishings.
Okay.
And then what they like to do as well is that if they're in Hamilton, they'll get local Hamilton artists to submit, and maybe use their work. In Cambridge, it'll be the same thing.
Right.
So it gives that, basically location a nice name for the art world.
And DannyBailey.ca, is this where somebody can actually buy this book? Or is this?
Well, I could send you a link if they want to look at the book online or buy it.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Okay.
But you know what? I mean, most of my books, I haven't really had them for sale. There's more like just personal stuff,
Okay.
you know. And this one here, this got together with a bunch of my friends, probably back in the mid 2000s, and they're all riders. And of course, I like shooting a lot of motorsport, so we just got together and
Shot a bunch of motorcycles.
shot a bunch of motorcycles. But yeah, but I can send you links to
Yeah, do that,
any
and
of that
I'll put
stuff
it
or
up.
whatever for sure.
Okay.
I did a documentary on Friday the 13th of Port Dover, released back in 2003, which was kind of nostalgic now if I look back at it, because it was during the time when, during the Friday the 13th, whether it be the wintertime, the springtime, or the summertime, you could still ride your bike down Main Street. You know, it was still a parade the whole day, rather than having everything closed off. And so, I mean, it's kind of fantastic, more historical now, I think, when I look back at it. And I shot there all 4 seasons, and it was a lot of fun.
Sweet. I used to love going, man.
Yeah, we had a lot
I
of
haven't
fun.
been in
there.
a long time. But
Shot a lot of snowmobiling. A couple of shows I had on TSN for the longest time was Motoring TV, which just went off the air actually after 33 years. I was with them for 29 years. Snow Tracks Television, which is a snowmobiling adventure show. Shot that until our host passed away in 2007. Other documentaries, I did. Have you ever heard of the Cane's Quest snowmobile race
No.
that takes place in Labrador?
in the east, the several days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, did the 2016 documentary on that I shot with friends.
I know somebody who did that.
I don't
can't
do
remember.
anything with snow, Danny.
Yeah, well, I understand as well. I mean, we spent like, I'm blown away by Ken Block getting killed,
Oh man,
right, in a snowmobile accident. I look back and I go, holy fuck.
guy could have
All
died
the-
in a billion ways.
Well, yeah, and I think back, you know, he died snowmobiling, and I think back as well that, oh my God, you know, there's just so many times when any of us could have just, you know, moose came out, or, you know, whatever, malfunction of the engine, or,
For sure.
you know, screaming across a frozen lake and all of a sudden hitting a pile of ice and just losing it or whatever. I do have one snowmobile story. When I was shooting snowmobiles, we were up in Halliburton, and I'd shot, I don't know, it was like a poker run for the whole day for the show, right? And basically I always had a 2-up sled. So I had the sofa sled, you know.
Oh, nice.
And I would take my camera bag and my gear and everything and strap it to the backrest of the sled, right?
You learned that from the airplane one.
Yeah, it was always a bungee cord. I should have. But anyway, so we're in Halliburton, day's end, and now we're going back to where we're staying. And so we went from one lake, which is right downtown Halliburton, through a little channel, and then goes into another lake, and we were staying at the other side of the lake. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I was the last person. There was like 8 of us, all individual sleds. And we get to the channel, and all of a sudden I see the ice breaking in front of me. So the first thing I did was just took the throttle and just trying to, you know, maintain that motion to get out from the ice.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden the sled starts going backwards. The skis fortunately hooked on the ice in front of me.
Ooh.
So I rolled off the sled to finally getting to a dock that was just, you know, maybe about 30 feet from where I was in the lake. Grabbed this rope that was tied to the dock, and then I shimmied out and I tied it to the front ski taut so that we wouldn't lose the sled if it happened to go all the way under. And then I'm looking at my camera gear, and it's submerged.
Slowly dipping.
And
Yeah.
everything is underwater, you know, no backrest because the sled's underwater, right? So,
Now, I'm only guessing, but that's not good for camera stuff. Huh?
no, not really.
Not
Well,
usually.
you know what? Fresh water is better than salt water. Let me just say that.
Yeah, but cold.
Yeah.
Cold water. I don't know.
So, needless to say, and you know what? It was back in the day when we were shooting those little digital videotapes or
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
So it wasn't like cards today where, you know, it probably wouldn't affect the card. But I had the whole day shoot on this tape, right? And so anyway, got back to where we were staying. I got tools out. I took the camera apart as much as I could, right? And I got the hair dryer, and I'm, just letting it go and trying to dry it out. And then next day we go back to the studio, and they were able to eject the tape. And it was pretty much dry at the time. So they thought, okay, well, let's just put it in the machine. And if it runs, dupe it. And so fortunately, yeah, they were able to play the tape. It actually played, and they were able to make a duplicate, so we didn't lose the feature that day.
And
Wow.
the camera, that's fine?
No, the camera was toast, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Damn, crazy.
Yeah.
You've been in some crazy scenarios, even when you're not shooting.
Oh, here's another one.
What's going
I
on?
got another
Wrecking
one.
a lot of camera.
Yeah, I got another one. So talking about snowmobiling, right? Our show, Snow Tracks Television. At the end of every episode, 30-minute episode on TSN, we would have this guy who would give the safety message. And this guy was a clown character, like would be in the Imperial Hell Drivers or whatever. He did everything wrong all the time, right? His name was Sled Ed. He had a mask, like a ski mask on, one of those half helmets, one-piece snowmobile suit, and he would ride, well, most of the time he'd ride this old Skidoo Olympic called Christine. And he would always get into trouble. At the end, that's the safety message was, don't be Ed, right? And that's how we always, so it was always a stunt, some kind of thing that was going to happen to actually engage the wrongdoing so that we could have it as a safety message. I always remember your line during backyard stunting, right? Yeah. Safety first, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, we were
we're gonna talk about
safety.
it,
right? No, we're not.
Safety last, I think, was in our books for doing any of the stunts that we were going to do. We had a great snowmobile junkyard near Barrie or whatever that had all these old one-lung relics. And the funny thing about these old snowmobiles, they wouldn't die. You'd put some alcohol in the carburetor or whatever, and they would start right up.
That's like me.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we had tons of sleds that we could wreck, so it was great. And anyway, we had a dummy. We only had like one costume. And when it came time to wreck the sled, we had a full up, bendable mannequin, and we would take the clothes off of Ed, put it on the mannequin, put the mannequin on the sled, put the mannequin's arms out on the bars, and then duct tape the throttle wide open with the mannequin's hand, right?
Yeah.
And then basically go to where we ever thought that the snowmobile was going to go, whatever line.
Oh my God.
Right? And then, so we had a couple of guys that, and like I said, I followed the puck, right? So I would have my shot sort of figured out and know where hopefully the action was going to happen. And we would have one guy, he'd lift up the track off the ground. The other guy, start the machine up, and now it's like, wah! And the other guy would drop the track, and then the mannequin is going with the snowmobile,
Yeah.
hopefully crashing into or taking the line of where we needed to go, right?
The crash test dummy. Yeah.
So this one instance, and I have a photo of this somewhere that you can use as well. But anyway, we get the dummy ready, and basically the storyline was that you're not supposed to, snowmobile in ditches, right? Lollygag around, riding in the ditches on a back road or whatever. And so basically what was going to happen was Ed is doing this, he's frolicking in the ditch or whatever, and then all of a sudden, bang, he hits a culvert.
Yeah.
Right? Which was always the dangerous part about snowmobiling in a ditch. So get the dummy ready, get the snowmobile ready, lift it up, start it up, let it go, bang, hits the culvert. The dummy flies over the top of the bars, right? And we're going, holy fuck. Most of the time we'd have to run to the snowmobile to stop it. Like, because it's still to whatever it crashed into, right? So we get the snowmobile stopped. And then all of a sudden we hear from this is like a dirt road, back road. We hear this woman say, "It's okay. I've called for an ambulance." And we look up, and here's this school bus driver. She closes her window and she drives off. And we're going like,
But it's a dummy.
right? So sure enough, like maybe about 5 minutes later, OPP coming down the road, flashing lights, and all of a sudden followed by an ambulance as well, right?
No.
So we're going to make a long story short. Fortunately, the property that we were on, we had permission because it was one of the host farms,
Sure.
right? And so our producer host actually knew the cop.
Okay.
Was friends with the cop. So when the cop came and he saw us all and Ed and everything, he went,
He just rolled his eyes.
yeah,
and laughed.
right. And so, I mean, we had to apologize and all that. And he's going, well, maybe next time get a permit or whatever. We're going, yeah, okay. It's like, but yeah, I mean, the snowmobiles were crazy. We had another short story. Ed's riding in a area where he's not supposed to ride because they're mining, they're blasting, right? So of course, what's going to happen in the end? He's sitting on his snowmobile. He's got his map open because he's lost, and of course, then you hear the blast horn, right? Because I mean, in the beginning, he passes a sign that goes danger, like because they're blasting or whatever. So we set it up that way. He stops the machine during his trail ride. He's opening his map up. Then we go to the wide shot, and then all of a sudden, we hear the horn go a couple of times, and then boom, right? The fucking sled. So it blew up and like, I don't know how many pieces. And there was shrapnel everywhere. But what was really crazy was the fact that we hadn't met the guy who had the dynamite until the day before. He worked and was a licensed, I don't know, demolition guy at a mine in Sudbury. Mm-hmm. So I remember, I mean, most of all the planning was like on a napkin the day before. Okay, this is the scene. This is what we're gonna do.
It's always
right?
best.
Yeah. And then we got
the plan.
We got the guy, the dynamite guy, right? So we're going through with him, and he said, "Okay, well, how high do you want the sled to jump? Like how high do you want?" And we're going like, I don't know, like 8 feet maybe or whatever. We just need to know that Ed's blowing up, right? And he said, okay. He said, all right, 1 stick of dynamite will do that, all right. And I'll bring my big rubber mat and we'll put that down between the dynamite and the sled, and that'll dampen the explosion. And so finally we get set up the next day. And I remember the producer says, hey, we're going to get the Sudbury newspaper down here to shoot behind the scenes. And I go, not with me in the shot, you're not. I said, there's no way because, of course, we don't even have a fire extinguisher that I'm going to get involved with any, press, making a story out of us doing this with dynamite. So anyway, we had like 3 or 4 cameras set up. Most of them were unmanned because at that time, we didn't have a budget or whatever, but we got them far enough away and on the action, zoomed in or whatever. I was behind a cement wall. We give the cue to start rolling, and then we cue the guy with the dynamite, the blast or whatever, and we're rolling, and all of a sudden, boom! The sled, I'm telling you, man, it went like over 30 feet in the air and just blasted everything apart. I mean, the only thing that we really found was the cowl, and the dummy, which were, I mean, the divot was like 6 feet deep. I'm not shitting, right?
That's with his rubber mat on top?
So the guy thought, well, when he went home, he went, yeah, I don't know, maybe 1 stick of dynamite isn't good enough. So he thought, well, maybe I'll use 3. And he didn't use a mat.
Okay, so the planning stage with the napkin went right out the window.
And this guy's drive home to Sudbury the night before the stunt's going to happen.
And were you guys informed?
No,
of his...
we had no idea. He didn't even tell us what his plan was.
You gave him the napkin and he used it to wipe his face.
Yeah. I think the moral of this show is ask permission.
But anyway, it's on Sled Ed's greatest hits. That's
Sled Ed.
Yeah, Sled Ed.
Sled Ed.
Greatest hits.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy show. I mean, but it was fulfilling in the sense that you knew you were going to wreck something at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like we
the
we got permission from like CN Railway to crash into a locomotive.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then on another one that I wanted to do, which we didn't get permission from, was I always thought it'd be cool if the sled could come off a train bridge
Yeah, that's
and into the
really
valley
cool.
bubble, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah, why not?
the day we're doing that, we prepped the dummy and everything. We're at the beginning of the train bridge, and anyway, I got a camera, like a small camera, on the bridge. We've got 2 people down below and 1 person following it from the top. Anyway, cameras are rolling, right? Start the sled up, drop the track. Now it's speeding down the railway track, and then it deviates maybe about 8 feet into the bridge. It's headed towards the side of the bridge, and all of a sudden, it was like 6 seconds maybe, the shot from beginning to end, right? And it landed in the river, in the ravine below the train bridge, and it was such a great shot because the snowmobile is submerged in water, and the dummy's just sort of like floating on the top of the water, face down like this. So, I mean, it was a great sequence. But the bad part about that whole thing was it took us like an hour to set it up. It took us 6 hours to pull the sled out of the river because we had to take it out with us, right? And we had to pull it all the way back up to the top of the bridge, right? So, I mean, that took a lot of man work, a lot of ropes, and a lot of pulling.
So in
No
life,
shit.
do people on snowmobiles drive across train trestles over rivers?
Well, if you're Daredevil, you could. I mean,
I've never
you're
thought-
breaking. I mean, you're trespassing.
That's ridiculous.
But in a lot of places as well, because the rail lines have been taken out, that a lot of the bridges have been refurbished with the rails off just for snowmobiles to cross over. Like the ties have boards on top or whatever, and so
well,
it's a
sure,
smooth-
if it's designed for it, I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Okay. I've never driven a snowmobile. I've been on tons of them, but
Yeah.
personally, I've never driven
Well,
one.
That sort of reminds me as well. Back growing up in Tilsonburg, we had 3 train bridges around the area, and of course, back in the day, as kids, we'd walk the rail lines all the time. You know, it was not a big thing about trespassing on
Right.
CN lines.
I did that
or-
growing up in Cambridge.
Yeah,
Preston.
and having 3 train bridges, I mean, it was always the daredevil thing to walk across, you know, because you're looking down, you could see between the ties as you're walking, getting fucking freaked out and all that. And what we started doing was we would see the train coming down the tracks. So right at the where the bridge would be in the embankment, it was usually like a cement structure holding it on the end, and there always like a cubby hole in there, and we would sit under there, and then the train would get louder and louder and louder,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, whoa, like just 3 feet on top of you, right? The locomotive is pulling whatever, and then I don't know if you know this as well, but a lot of train bridges also had these boxes that were boarded to the side, which usually held like a 40-gallon drum of water
Okay.
in case there was a fire on the bridge. I don't know how you're going to use the water anyway, like a scoop or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But over the years, I guess, you know, like a lot of these train bridges, somebody, you know, there wasn't any water in the drums. They tossed them over. Hey, so they were empty. And we would sit inside those where the barrels used to be, and then just shuddering, you know, the train get louder, louder, louder. Close your eyes, and you just hear this thing like a meter away, if not less, right? And
Yeah,
just
yeah.
scare the shit out of you. But the adrenaline rush was so fantastic.
Now I've got to put up that sign, "Do not try at home."
Yeah.
Yeah.
My God.
Do not try any of the things that we talk about.
Yeah.
So Danny, you've been shooting long enough to see the transformation
Yeah.
of tape to digital. Tell us a little bit about that, just real quick, on
Well, I think, you know what?
cameras, technology.
Yeah. Shortly, you know, there was actually 35 millimeter that most movie makers used, and then of course 16 millimeter was used in the wars and all of that became the portable method of gathering images. And then of course, like in the 50s, and I can't remember the cinematographers back then, but there was one guy who I think was with the NFB or whatever, and put the camera on his shoulder and gave a whole new perspective. Because in those days, most of the time when you were shooting, unless you had a little wind-up Bolex, or you're always shooting off a tripod,
Right.
right? You're always shooting off a tripod. And then all of a sudden the camera went to the shoulder, and the mobility and the POV, all of that became a new way of gathering images, right? And so that exploded, and 16 millimeter film, mostly silent, became the standard for news gathering at that time. I mean, the networks, of course, had a sound person, or they were recording magnetic sound on their film if they had the budget. So when I came in, 16 millimeter sort of slowly was losing its strength around 1978 when video was coming in, and you could now buy a video camcorder, and made editing. You didn't have to process the film. You know, it was instant. You could take the tape out of the machine, put it in an editor, you know, or broadcast it immediately if you had a player. At the time when videotape got to that point, there was something like, over the years, like 29 different formats of recorders. It wasn't like a standard, like a cassette, an audio cassette where, you know, or an 8-track tape where, you know, it was standard, right? But if you had 29 different formats, it meant that whatever format you shot on the tape, it would only be played back on that certain piece of machinery. I mean, I've got a lot of tape that I've hoarded, where I don't even think that they have. I don't even know why I have the tape, other than, you know,
You have
just
no
like,
playback capability.
yeah. I mean, it's even like the tape that I recorded of our ventures there.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, oh yeah, okay, I still have VHS, yeah, okay, but I don't have M1 or M2 or, you know, IVC or, you know, any of the crazy formats that I'd used over the days. Very happy to see digital come in. Funny story. I was in South Korea during the Special Olympic Winter Games, and at that time we were using Sony. What the hell number was it? She's eludes me right now. But anyway, Spielberg shot his third Star Wars with this. It was a video camera, right? 1080. So it was a really, you know, the camera was worth like 140 grand or whatever. And so anyway, I'm in Korea, and this was maybe about 9 years ago. I'm at the end of a cross-country skiing race, and I was using digital Betacam at that time. And so anyway, at one point I'm standing there. There's a couple of young Korean guys standing beside me, and anyway, I eject the tape because I need a new tape and I put it in the camera, and I hear one of the youngsters beside me say to his buddy, "Old school," which makes you feel pretty old, right? But yeah, I mean, as soon as digital came in, it changed the world again, right? I mean, now I wish that I had a GoPro camera back in the day, you know, like we didn't have
totally.
anything like that. So if you wanted to acquire some great shots, you were always, like I was always, you know, taking my Daredevil Dan and trying to get the angles, whether it be a speeding car down a roadway at 100 miles an hour past, you know,
Yeah.
a foot past you or whatever. Just trying to get the shot, you know, trying to make it exciting, trying to give you a different angle that you've never seen before, you know, make the viewer sort of go, "What's that?" and then discover, okay, that's that or whatever. Yeah, it's I don't even know. Today I've got like the little DJI Pocket 2 camera. It's got 4K video. It's got a 3-axis gimbal, and I can hold it in my hand. I can shoot
Crazy.
hyperlapse, time lapse. You know, I mean, yeah, it's just, there's no limit, right?
Yeah, and it's just going to continue going.
Your hard drive is your only limit.
You really?
Or I shouldn't say that. I should say maybe your subscription to the cloud is your only limit.
Yeah. No shit.
Yeah. Shooting 4K, it's huge files.
Yeah,
Oh,
totally,
yeah.
right? But yeah, so I mean, and the price as well. I mean, when we were shooting back in the day, it would cost us over $1,000 to rent a 3/4 inch TV camera. You know, I mean, it was just horrendous how much it would cost. Editing would cost $250 an hour. You know, like, so it wasn't attainable for a lot of people unless you had money behind you, had some sponsorship or TV station, or, you know, money from somewhere to actually make and to help you create whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
Any advice for anybody that wants to do what you do?
Well, I think just do what you want to do. You know, if you want to be a filmmaker, right? I mean, do what you want to do. You can learn, you can, you know, spend your time at a local cable company, maybe if you want to start learning. I don't think you necessarily need to go to college anymore. If you want to go to college, go to YouTube. That's you know, everything you want to know, you're going to have it there. And it might not be the best teacher, but there are so many teachers teaching that one same thing that you'll find somebody that, you know, will tell you what you need to know. And don't be afraid. Just go out and do it, right? You know, I mean, nobody's going to come to you.
If you could correct one mistake everyone does with the camera, what would you tell them that is?
Don't stop rolling.
I agree.
You know,
that.
It's one of those things where, you know what? I mean, so much happens after the fact. If something happens, go for reaction.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Try to, you know, just find out what's going on. I mean, it sort of reminds me of there was an acquaintance when the Rolling Stones were at the temple, you know, doing the rehearsals during one of the 2000 shows, and this Rolling Stones fan would be at the back door of the Masonic Temple every night trying to get the guys leaving, right? And I mean, that was all fun and everything, and they would come up, sign some autographs. But this guy had shot, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks worth of footage, and it was the same stuff, right? Stones coming out the back door to the fans, shooting, doing the autographs. Same thing every night. And I'm going, man, I would be shooting the reaction to the people watching the Stones come out, like, you know, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, or whatever, right? To get that, you know, and especially if you want to tell a story, you can't have the same shot.
And it gives the audience this, like, it must have been exciting.
Well, totally.
It gives them, like, the vibe of what it was like to be there.
Yeah, even people, you know, waiting and participating and maybe having their little piece of paper with a pen or, you know, like whatever. Something like that, you know. I mean, you just... I often say that I use my third nostril. And what I mean by that is when I'm out shooting...
Hope he asks permission.
When I'm out shooting, I'd always say, you know, like I'm always... It's like Gretzky, right? They always said that he could see a play ahead, right? Well, same thing with me in the sense that I can I have that treasure where I can make a visual in my mind, so that if I wanted to get a wide shot of where you live, I can already think of what the shot would be standing on the roof of the place across the street, right? I can do that immediately. I can think of, you know, different shots, different angles, all of that. And that's because most of the time I'm a single shooter and I direct my own shots. So I need to know if I've got a shot of you, right, that I need to have a close-up of Randy, but then maybe I go to the side and I shoot across the two of you, or I shoot from high above, or, you know, just mixing it all up and trying to make something rather than just standing there with a camera on your shoulder and waving it around. And I think what really I despise these days with a lot of camera people is that rather than looking through a viewfinder and being, you know, like isolated into that iPod, that they're always standing back with their little screens pulled out.
You're looking at monitors.
And it's always a wide shot, right? It's not a tight shot. There's no, you know, narrow depth of field to give you some dimensional look. And they're always just, you know, like, you know, doing whatever, but they're never, I mean, a lot of cameras, at least yours have viewfinders. A lot of them don't even come out with viewfinders anymore, right? Everybody's got a monitor in front of them. But in most cases as well, a lot of people, it's just wide shot after wide shot. The only thing that changes is maybe the angle of the wide shot.
Interesting.
Get a wide shot right now, D.
Hey!
There it is.
We like our wide shots. That's the establishing shot. That's what takes you in, right? don't let the viewer have to figure out where the fuck are these guys,
No,
right?
well,
You open in the wide
geography's
shot.
important.
Yeah.
But having said that,
Yeah.
earlier you mentioned, we'll get to that, Bud, but
No, no.
you mentioned the island above the Horseshoe Falls. So you start with a guy on on a lounge having a Coke, and then we will come back and reveal the geography. So you can do it two ways. You can start with geography and go tight, or you can go tight and reveal.
Yeah.
So it's on the story you're telling. But
But yeah, most of the time, I mean, you just don't want to confuse the audience, right? One of the things I was taught when I was in college was in television, you want, or even in movies, you want to give the viewer what they want when they want it.
Okay.
So if you think about that, a lot of the times I'll watch TV and I go, okay, cut to the wide shot, and the director cuts to the wide shot because I'm always looking at it differently anyway. But give the viewer what they want when they want it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's an intuitive thing.
It is totally, right? I mean, you just got to think about it. If I shoot something with you and say I'm shooting a sound on tape where, you know, you finish your sentence, then I know it's okay to cut there. But don't cut halfway through the sentence, right? Anticipate a place where you can make the edit and then go on to the next possible shot.
Sure. Now, do you think that because of digital and all this, it's killing the amount of time that most people think about their next shot, or the amount of time that most directors have to, like, you know, while film is being taken out of this camera and a new one's coming into this camera, there's time for everyone to discuss the next shot, think about things. But now time is like this. Do you think that has killed creativity at all?
I think, no, I think it really depends on your budget and how big your crew is.
Really?
Yeah. You know, I mean, because back in the early days, I mean, the size of the equipment, yeah, it took a long time to move from one scene to the other, especially if you're shooting with single camera, right?
right.
But in today's day and age, with everything just being able to run and gun, as they call it,
Yeah.
you know,
But further to Andrew's point, I kind of agree in that back in the day when we edited film, I know a lot of people that have never made movies on film ever. An editor would take time to consider a cut prior to cutting. So they thought about it and they thought about it. And today, I do it. I sit on my editor and I go, click, I don't like that. Click, I don't like that. Back, click. So the thought process, your prep. Same with the director. When you were shooting on film, you had to figure out your shooting ratio, because you may end up with 3 days of schedule without film because you shot so much bullshit prior.
and I mean, just think about editing on a table with your films, like just all married together and,
Yeah.
you know, looking at a little shitty optical
I've done it.
viewfinder, right? I mean, it's not electronic as well. If you go back to the old days of editing 16 mil or 35 mil, right? I mean, yeah, I just say, you know, today's kids, they have it so easy.
Well, that's the thing.
Well, that's Andrew's point.
Yeah.
You're not thinking and creating something. You're just shooting everything and then going in.
Well, hopefully, you know, I mean, if you are shooting something, you have some kind of a plan that you're going with that, you know, will allow
Yeah,
you
you'd
on a
hope so.
napkin.
Yeah, you'd
Yeah.
hope so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that, like, people are less creative, or that they're less, or that they're not any. Like, I imagine that there are people that have seen older work and are just better now at being creative and utilizing what we have to offer, the tools that we have to offer.
Right.
But yeah, just everything is so easy and quick that you don't have to think much about it, or you're willing to maybe compromise some of your creativity because it's as easy as throwing something up on YouTube or whatever,
Yeah.
like this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we do
Like,
with this.
you know,
Can I plug a movie that I've
Yeah,
always
do it
thought,
up.
you know, if you are a filmmaker or a video, I mean, like, film has crossed over now into so many, you know,
Yeah.
nouns and pronouns and whatever you want. That I don't know if you know the Steve Buscemi movie Living in Oblivion.
no, I don't.
Have you seen that?
No.
Oh my God, it's a must. It is a must, and I would say that anyone who wants to make a film should see that film.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's available on. I'll send you the link. It's like on Pluto, I think, or Tubi or whatever. It's available.
So
But
it's newish.
no. It was probably one of Steve's movies before Fargo. So how
Oh,
about
wow.
far back does that go?
Oh, wow.
1980s anyway.
Yeah, no, but it is so good, and with you guys working in the movie business, I mean, you're gonna love this film because it's
Oh
just
man, now I'm stoked.
yeah, totally. Yeah, you're gonna like that.
Cool.
But anyway, yeah, any young filmmaker should see that just to see what can happen, on a movie set, especially indie movies, right? And that's all I make usually these days. I belonged to 667 for a while, but I didn't really get a lot of work with them other than EPKs and things like that. And you know what? I was just not built for union work. It was just one of those things where it's a totally different world, and when
You
you're
sound like a
freelance,
guerrilla. The way you think,
Run
and
and
the way you
gun.
did,
yeah, totally,
No permission.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Napkin plans.
Get the
yeah.
shot,
I
get the
love
shot
that.
while
No.
it's happening, right? And but yeah, I wasn't made for the union, so I didn't really work on too many films at all. That I just sort of went, that's okay. I don't mind, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I spent a lot of time on the road shooting in different countries. Kitchener, where I'm based, was always great because I was right, 7K from the 401, get on the 401, go to Pearson, fly out to wherever we're doing the shoot, come home. I am a member of the 1 Million Mile Club with Air Canada, saying that I've flown 1 million miles with them.
No way.
Yeah, one day this package comes to my door, FedEx or whatever. I was like, well, what the fuck's this, right? And I open it up and it's like, congratulations, you have flown 1 million miles with Air Canada. And then they had this model airplane inside the box, and it's on a podium and my name engraved on the bottom of it and everything, saying
Wow.
I'm a million miler. And the perks that go along with it, meaning that I don't have to fly 1 mile with Air Canada anymore, and I'm always a 50,000 point member, which still gives me all of the privileges of, all my bags are free. I get 3 bags. I get to go to all the lounges, all the perks that come with being a 50,000 Aeroplan elite traveler
Cool.
for life. So yeah, that was interesting. But thinking 1 million miles, and that was just Air Canada. I mean, I've flown so many different aircraft that,
How many countries have you been in?
I think the last time I counted was like 46 or 47,
Okay.
and a lot of them many times, number of
I
times.
see. Yeah. And where was your favorite place to go in the world?
I liked Amsterdam
Cambridge.
a lot.
Amsterdam. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was always like one of
been
those
known to be a fun place
One
to
of those port of calls where if you had the privilege to actually put your itinerary together, it would like, okay, well, we can go over to here and change through Amsterdam and then fly to Bangkok and
Right
favorite places. You know what? I've been to a lot of places where I'd like to go back to.
Okay.
Burma would be one.
I guess you go there to work. You don't necessarily go there to stay, to some degree.
No.
To
I
hang
mean,
out.
yeah, no. I mean, it's like anything else. You see the hotel, you see the airport, and then you see the location where you're working,
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So would you say Burma?
Burma, yeah, that would.
I don't even know if I've heard of Burma.
Myanmar is what it's known as now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a neighbor to Thailand,
Right.
between
Okay.
Thailand and India,
Okay.
Pakistan,
I've heard of those ones.
China,
Yeah.
Laos. Yeah, right in there.
over there somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a documentary back in 1985 when I was at CKCO TV, and a Canadian doctor, had found a set of Siamese twins on a trip in Burma, in Mandalay, Burma, and ended up, this doctor was with Sick Kids Hospital, and at that time they were just beginning to separate conjoined twins. And so the twins came to Toronto, and they were separated. They were born with one set of male genitalia, and they made a vagina for the other guy, unfortunately for him.
Nice.
And then anyway, I got called in actually, not to do the hospital shoot, but to do the shoots where there was 2 different shoots where we turned the twins back to Burma. And so I did those launches back to Burma. And this is back in the days before 1988 when the riots happened and the government, you know, fell and the military took over. But it was, I ran into a guy who was there during the Second World War as a soldier, and he says, you know what, nothing's changed here, you know. And yeah, and as a socialist republic and almost communist in a way, because Russia put a lot of stuff into that it was just a place where, you know, time had forgotten. And and I remember as well, we had a member of the government of information with us the whole time we were shooting. We were the first camera crew in 1985 to be given a 2-week visa to go into the country to shoot. The only previous was in 1961 when National Geographic had been in there. So the country had been so closed off. But fortunately for us, we were shooting a show or a documentary where the whole country knew of these twins. They were like, everywhere we went, they were like stars, right? Yeah, so we did 2 trips to Burma that year, and that was pretty interesting. It was the first time I'd ever shot in Southeast Asia as well. So,
That's neat.
But I've shot in Korea, I've shot in Japan many times, China many times, Thailand, and then in the Middle East as well, Dubai quite a few times. And then
Dubai, yeah.
Oh, that's a crazy place.
I bet.
I remember the last time we were in Dubai. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but we were staying at the tallest hotel in the world.
Oh yeah, which one's that again?
That the
Well,
Burj
that's not
Khalifa?
no, that's not the Burj. The Burj is the tallest building.
Okay.
Right, but this is like the tallest hotel in the world, right? And what I remember about that place is
Hotels want to be tall too.
yeah, yeah. Robots need love too. You know, they're boasting, yes, we're the tallest hotel in the world,
Yeah.
right? But you couldn't get Pornhub or YouTube or YouPorn on your cell phone,
What
right?
the fuck?
Yeah, the internet was just like totally concealed to, you know, maybe the local bulletin board of Dubai or something. And then as well, no alcohol as well. So here you are in the middle of, you know, like one of the richest places in the world, and you can't even get a beer, right?
Sounds like Canada
So it's
10 years from now.
Better to go to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Goods and
Wow,
services.
wild, wild.
That's hilarious.
But
Well,
the Burj, that is quite the building.
Yeah,
man.
Something to see, I bet, eh? Oh my
Crazy.
God.
Yeah, totally. It's like, well, you know what? A lot of that stuff around there, it doesn't look real. Like the first time I went to Dubai was on our second trip to Burma, where we stopped in Dubai just to refuel. And it was like 2:00 in the morning. It was in October, and it was 42 degrees outside at 2 a.m. That place is always just like the hottest place on earth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it looks nice and everything, but if you go outside, most of the time you can't stay outside for quite a while, right? Because of the conditions. And then you look at all the buildings, like when I was there, the airport and maybe one hotel, the rest was just desert sand with the odd, you know, flame shooting out of an oil dirge somewhere, you know, like,
Okay.
you know, at midnight or whatever. And it's unfortunate though. I mean, when you go around to places that are being constructed, most of these places all have East Indians that have gone there to put things together, to build everything. And then if you see the places where they're living, oh my gosh, you know, it's like 5 guys to a 2-bedroom apartment or whatever.
I've seen a documentary.
Yeah, it's just so eye-opening, right? And the crazy thing about all those places, it's only a few hours from home now, right? Fly over and you're
enough.
there.
Yeah.
True enough.
Yeah. What a world.
Yeah,
What a world we live in.
totally.
Danny, you've had quite a career, buddy.
Well, thank you. I mean, so have you.
No,
right?
it's just incredible. It's just incredible to see you and have this chat. You know, I'd love to have you back, and we'll talk more about filmmaking and.
Sure,
like that.
anytime. Yeah, I'd love to. This
Okay.
is always special.
You really have lived a very cool life.
Oh, well, thanks, Ed.
It sure sounds cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. Well,
Before we go,
before we wrap up, can you do us the pleasure of signing our table?
Do I have to make a poem?
No, you don't.
You can.
Yeah. And you can also draw a picture as evidenced by everyone else.
Oh
Yeah,
my
if you could think of
gosh.
something that nobody's done.
I didn't know there was going to be a test. All right, thanks, guys.
Don't stress about it. Hey, do what you got to do.
We'll do this side because this side's going to be worth money.
Whoops, I went over on the wall.
Well, that's a good point, but anywhere it's really is fine.
Just anywhere. Do it up here, Danny, where there's room, brother.
No, he likes it down here by the edge.
He likes living on the edge.
Yeah.
For those listening, that's Danny's Sharpie scratching the table.
Yeah.
For those watching, I'm sure we're on a wide, but seeing Danny sign the table.
I love it. I love what he's signing.
I can't even read it here.
My balls rested here against this board. I love it.
I didn't know what to do.
I love it.
No,
Yes,
that's perfect.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
And yeah, you're, you have nice balls, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I noticed them.
I thought they were
resting there.
concealed.
Yeah, but they've been right there the whole
Dang.
time.
I knew that thong was a little loose.
You guys are crazy. Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Cut it, D.
Danny, thank you, man.
Hey, no worries.